The black ships of the Vex Empire cut through space like knives through silk. Their hulls absorbed light rather than reflected it. No stars twinkled off their surfaces. They were holes in space, moving with purpose, bringing death. Admiral Thorne stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. At 8 feet tall, he loomed over the other Vex officers. His gray skin was marked with battle scars, each one earned through combat and preserved as a badge of honor. The exoskeleton plates on his shoulders and chest gleamed under the blue lights of the command center. "Status report," he said. His voice was deep and cold. Captain Mara approached. She was shorter than Thorne, but still impressive by any standard. Her movements were quick and efficient. Like all Vex, she wasted no energy on unnecessary actions. "The Krell defense fleet has been destroyed, Admiral," she reported. "Their orbital stations have fallen. Ground resistance continues but will not last beyond the next cycle." Thorne nodded. The Krell were the 17th species to fall to the Vex during his command. They had fought well, better than most, but the outcome was never in doubt. Nothing in the universe could stand against the Vex. This was simply a fact, like gravity or the vacuum of space. "Casualties?" Thorne asked, more out of procedure than concern. 23 ships damaged, 8 beyond repair. Approximately 6,000 ground troops lost. Thorne frowned. That was higher than expected. The Krell had managed to surprise them with hidden weapon emplacements. Still, it was a small price to pay for another world added to the Empire. "Begin resource extraction." "Immediately," he ordered. "Suitable Krell specimens should be processed for labor assignment. The rest are to be eliminated." Mara nodded and turned to relay the orders. This was the way of things. The Vex had followed this pattern for 10,000 years. They discovered. They conquered. They consumed. This was the natural order of the universe. Later, Thorne stood in his private chamber, looking at the holographic display of the conquered Krell homeworld. It was a beautiful planet, rich in resources. Its oceans glowed with bioluminescent life. Its continents were covered in strange spiral-shaped forests. All of it now belonged to the Vex Empire. His door chimed. "Enter," he said. Intelligence Officer Wren stepped into the room. Wren was unusual for a Vex. He was smaller than most, with an oversized head that housed an enhanced brain. His kind were rare, one born perhaps every few hundred years. They lacked physical power but possessed analytical abilities that even the most advanced Vex computers could not match. "Admiral, the scout ships have returned from the edge of the Orion Arm," Wren said. Thorne turned from the display. "And?" "They found something interesting." Wren's voice had a hint of excitement and emotion most Vex rarely showed. "A developing civilization. They call themselves humans." Thorne's upper lip curled slightly. Another species to conquer. Another world or worlds to strip of resources. "Show me." Wren waved his 6-fingered hand and the hologram of the Krell world disappeared. In its place appeared a small blue-green planet. "Their homeworld. They call it Earth," Wren explained. "A water world with 7 continents, oxygen atmosphere, gravity slightly lower than our standard." The image zoomed out to show a star system. 1 sun, 8 planets, several dwarf planets and asteroid belts. "Their level of technology?" Thorne asked. "Early space age. They have colonies on their moon and neighboring planet, small outposts on several moons of their gas giants. They've sent primitive robotic probes beyond their system, but their fastest ships would take decades to reach even the nearest star." Thorne grunted. "Primitives, then. Hardly worth his personal attention. The interesting part," Wren continued, "is their history." The hologram shifted to show images captured by the scout ships. Humans building cities. Humans fighting wars. Humans creating art. Humans exploring their world. "They've only had industrial technology for about 300 years, Wren said. Before that, they were using animal power and simple machines. But look at the rate of advancement. The images flashed faster. Horse-drawn carriages became steam engines. Propeller aircraft became jet engines. Vacuum tubes became microchips. Rockets became space stations. No other species we've encountered has advanced this quickly, Wren said. From their first powered flight to landing on their moon took them less than 70 years. Thorne frowned. That was an unusual but ultimately meaningless. Are they a threat? Wren hesitated. No. Their weapons are primitive. Nuclear fission, early fusion, basic energy weapons. Their ships have minimal shielding, but what? Their psychology is different. They fight constantly, against their environment, against each other. They've had thousands of wars in their short history. Their literature is filled with stories of struggle against impossible odds. They seem to enjoy challenge. Thorne laughed, a harsh barking sound rarely heard from a Vex. All species fight when they must. All species surrender when they should. These humans will be no different. Wren didn't look convinced. There's something else. They're highly adaptable. Their planet has environments ranging from Arctic to desert to tropical, and they've colonized all of them. They can survive temperature ranges that would kill most species. Enough, Thorne said, waving a dismissive hand. Prepare a standard conquest plan. I will assign Captain Drav to lead the operation. With respect, Admiral, Wren said, I believe this species warrants more study before— More study? Thorne's voice dropped dangerously low. Are you suggesting that these primitives might pose a challenge to the Empire? Wren looked down. No, Admiral. Good, because that would be absurd. Thorne turned back to the hologram, studying the blue-green world. 17 worlds have fallen to me alone. Hundreds more to the Empire before I was born. These humans will join the others, either as slaves or as extinct curiosities. Wren bowed and left the chamber. 3 standard cycles later, Thorne stood, again on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest. The massive dreadnought was leading a fleet of 100 ships toward the edge of human space. It was larger than necessary for such a primitive species, but Thorne believed in overwhelming force. It prevented resistance, which prevented waste. Captain Mara approached, her face showing unusual concern. Admiral, we've received a transmission from Scout Squadron 3. What is it? Thorne asked, noting her tone. They initiated first contact, with a human outpost on what the humans call Mars. They followed standard intimidation protocol, disabled their communications array with precision strikes. And? Mara swallowed. The humans counterattacked. They destroyed 3 scout ships before the squadron commander retreated. Silence fell on the bridge. No Vex ship had been lost in a first contact scenario in over 2,000 years. Impossible, Thorne said finally. Our scout ships are superior to anything these humans could possess. The squadron commander reports that the humans used unusual tactics. They appear to have sacrificed several of their own ships to create openings for their attack vessels. Thorne's eyes narrowed. Sacrifice was not a concept the Vex understood. Well, why would any commander throw away resources? It changes nothing, he said after a moment. Prepare the fleet for full combat deployment. I will lead this conquest personally. As the fleet accelerated toward human space, Thorne looked at the tactical display showing Earth and its colonies. Such a small territory. Such a young species. How could they possibly stand against the might of an empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds over 10,000 years? Nothing in the universe had ever made the Vex afraid. That was about to change. Captain Reed of the Earth Defense Force stood on the bridge of the Defiant, his eyes fixed on the main screen. 6 unidentified vessels had entered the Mars defense perimeter 10 minutes ago. They moved like nothing he had ever seen before, smooth, silent, and impossibly fast. Any response to our hails? Reed asked. He was a tall man with dark skin and a closely trimmed beard. 20 years in space had left him with a calm that younger officers envied. Lieutenant Park shook her head. Nothing, sir. Reed frowned. First, contact protocols were clear. Establish communication, show peaceful intentions but never appear weak. Humanity had learned through centuries of its own bloody history that weakness invited aggression. Send another message, Reed ordered. All frequencies, all known formats. Make it clear we mean no harm, but this is restricted space. Park nodded and began transmitting. The bridge crew waited, tense but disciplined. The response came without warning. 2 of Earth's communication satellites exploded in silent bursts of light. "They've fired on our comm array," Park shouted. Reed's face hardened. "So that's how it's going to be. Sound general quarters. Launch defense squadrons. Inform Earth Command that we have hostile first contact." Alarm klaxons wailed throughout the ship. Reed watched as his small fleet of 20 ships moved to defensive positions. They were mainly patrol vessels, lightly armed but fast. Against the strange black ships, they looked like toys. "Sir," Park said, her voice tight. "Earth Command says, reinforcements are 8 hours away. We are authorized to engage under Defense Protocol 7. Reed nodded grimly. "Protocol 7, last line of defense. No retreat. All ships," he commanded. "Execute maneuver Thermopylae." Commander Shar of the Vex Scout fleet watched with mild interest as the human vessels began to move. Their formation was unusual. Not the standard defensive sphere most species adopted, but something more complex. Some ships moved forward while others hung back. Primitive vessels, he noted to his second-in-command. No energy shielding, minimal armor, basic propulsion systems. "They are changing formation," his officer replied. "Attack pattern?" Shar made a dismissive gesture with his upper limb. "Let them try. Our shields can withstand anything they possess." The human ships suddenly accelerated to surprising speeds. They split into 3 groups, each targeting a different Vex vessel. "Curious," Shar said. "They're dividing their forces against superior enemies. Tactically illogical." What happened next caught the Vex completely by surprise. The human ships didn't fire their weapons from a distance as expected. Instead, they drove straight toward the Vex vessels on collision courses. "Evasive action," Shar ordered, but it was too late. 3 human ships slammed into one of the Vex scouts. Their reactors detonated on impact, creating an electromagnetic pulse that washed over the Vex ship. Its shields flickered and died. "Impossible," Shar muttered. No species sacrificed ships in suicide attacks during first contact. It defied all logic. Before the Vex could recover, the second wave of human vessels opened fire on the now unshielded scout ship. Primitive missiles and energy weapons tore into the exposed hull. The Vex vessel exploded in a ball of blue fire. Shar stared in disbelief. A Vex ship destroyed by primitives? It hadn't happened in living memory. "All vessels, full combat protocols," he ordered. "Destroy all human ships." The battle that followed was short but shocking. The Vex lost 5 scout ships to the humans 17. By any measure, it was a Vex victory, but one that came at an unthinkable cost. Vex scouts simply didn't lose ships against primitive species. Ever. As his damaged vessel limped away from the Mars defense perimeter, Shar composed his report to Admiral Thorne with shaking hands. How could he explain such losses against a species that should have surrendered at the first show of Vex power? On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, Admiral Thorne read the battle report with growing rage. 5 ships lost to primitives? His voice was deadly quiet. Commander Shar should be executed for incompetence. Captain Mara stood at attention, careful to keep her expression neutral. "The battle recordings confirm his report, Admiral. The humans used unusual tactics." "Show me," Thorne ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the battle from multiple angles. Thorne watched as human ships deliberately collided with Vex vessels, as human captains coordinated attacks that sacrificed many to take down one enemy ship, as damaged human vessels continued fighting long after most species would have surrendered. Intelligence Officer Wren stepped forward. "If I may, Admiral." Thorne nodded stiffly. "I believe we are witnessing something unprecedented," Wren said. "These humans do not respond to intimidation as other species do. Our standard conquest approach may be ineffective." "Nonsense," Thorne snapped. "They caught our scouts by surprise with unconventional tactics. It will not happen again." Wren hesitated, then continued. "I have been analyzing their communication patterns during the battle. Their language contains concepts that are difficult to translate. They speak of courage, sacrifice, and duty in ways our language has no words for. All species have similar concepts, Thorne dismissed. Not like this, Wren insisted. When a human ship was damaged, the captain ordered his crew to abandon ship. Then he remained behind to pilot the vessel into one of our scouts. His final transmission was, for Earth and all humanity. He sacrificed himself deliberately. Thorne frowned. Self-sacrifice for the collective was not unknown among some hive species, but those were driven by biological imperatives. These humans appeared to choose sacrifice through some incomprehensible reasoning. It changes nothing, Thorne declared after a moment. Prepare the fleet for full assault. We will crush their main defenses in a single attack. Then they will understand true power, and they will surrender like all the others. But doubt had crept into his mind, a sensation so unfamiliar that he barely recognized it. On Earth, the Defense Council gathered in an underground bunker beneath the old city of Geneva. 12 men and women seated around a circular table representing the unified governments of humanity. General Hayes, head of the Earth Defense Force, stood before a holographic display showing the battle at Mars. Her face was grim but determined. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're seeing is humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. They attacked without provocation after we attempted peaceful communication. President Chen leaned forward. What are we dealing with, General? We don't know much yet. Their technology is far advanced beyond ours. Their ships absorb our sensor scans. Based on the Mars engagement, they expected us to surrender immediately. But we didn't, said Director Patel of Science Division. No, Hayes said with a hint of pride. Captain Reed and his fleet followed Protocol 7. They took down 5 enemy vessels before being destroyed. At the cost of 17 ships and over 2,000 lives, Chen noted solemnly. Hayes nodded. Yes, Mr. President. But they've sent us something invaluable. Information. We now know these aliens can be hurt. Their ships can be destroyed. And what's coming next? Asked the representative from the African Union. Hayes touched the display and it changed to show long-range sensor readings. A vast fleet of black ships was moving toward Earth. Hundreds of them led by a vessel so large it dwarfed everything around it. This, she said simply. Our estimates suggest they'll reach Earth in 7 days. Silence fell over the room. What are our options? Chen finally asked. Hayes straightened her shoulders. We fight. We've already begun evacuating civilians to the underground shelters. All military personnel are on highest alert. We're activating every ship, every weapon, every defense system we have. Will it be enough? Someone asked. Hayes looked each council member in the eye before answering. Probably not. Their technology outmatches ours by centuries. In a conventional war, we would lose. So what do? Chen pressed. We don't fight a conventional war, Hayes replied. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and our own near destruction of the environment. We survived because we adapt, we improvise, we endure. She touched the display again, bringing up images of Earth's defense plans. We fight with everything we have. We make them pay for every inch of space, every foot of ground, and maybe, just maybe, we show them that humanity is not a species that can be conquered. As the council began discussing specific defense strategies, Hayes looked back at the image of the approaching alien fleet. In 7 days, humanity would face the greatest threat in its history, but humans had always done their best when the odds were against them. The aliens might not know it yet, but they had awakened something terrible on this small blue planet. Humanity united against a common enemy. Throughout history, nothing had ever proven more dangerous. New Mars was humanity's oldest and largest colony outside Earth. Nearly 50,000 people lived under its massive domes, working the mines and farms that helped support Earth's growing population. The colony had been mankind's first permanent foothold on another world, a symbol of human determination and ingenuity. Now it was about to become a battlefield. Colonel Adams stood at the command center of New Mars Defense Base, looking at the tactical display with grim determination. The Vex fleet had entered Mars orbit 30 minutes ago, hundreds of black ships blotting out the stars. Status of evacuation? Adams asked. She was a compact woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war on Earth before humans reached for the stars. 80% complete, Major West replied. The last civilian transports will leave in 20 minutes. Adams nodded. And our defenses? All automated systems online. Missile batteries charged. The minefield is active. All soldiers in position. Outside the base, 2,000 Earth Defense Force troops prepared for ground combat. They knew what was coming. They had seen the transmissions from Earth about the approaching Vex fleet. They knew the odds. None had asked to leave with the civilians. Adams checked her sidearm, an old habit from her days fighting in the water wars back on Earth. Let's make sure these aliens understand what it means to fight humans. Admiral Thorne's voice boomed across all communication frequencies as the Vex fleet surrounded the red planet. Attention, human colony. This is Admiral Thorne of the Vex Empire. Your pitiful defense fleet has been destroyed. Your homeworld will soon fall. Surrender now and some of you may live as servants of the Empire. Resist and you will be eliminated. You have 1 hour to decide. In the new Mars Command Center, Colonel Adams didn't hesitate. She opened a channel to respond. This is Colonel Emma Adams of the Earth Defense Force. We've received your message and discussed your terms. She paused. Our answer is, come and get us, you overgrown cockroaches. She cut the transmission and turned to her officers. That should piss them off. Major West couldn't hide his smile. Yes, ma'am. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, Admiral Thorne's face darkened with rage. Cockroaches, he snarled. They dare? Captain Mara stood perfectly still, knowing better than to speak when the Admiral was angry. Intelligence Officer Wren, however, stepped forward. Admiral, I believe this is another example of the unusual human psychology I mentioned. They are provoking us deliberately. Then they will learn the cost of such insolence, Thorne growled. Begin the landing. Standard conquest pattern. Level. They're major structures. Kill any who resist. Wren cleared his throat. If I may suggest, Admiral, perhaps we should adjust our standard approach. These humans have already demonstrated— Enough, Thorne cut him off. I have conquered 17 worlds using these tactics. I will not change them for primitives who got lucky once. Wren bowed and retreated, but the doubt in his eyes was clear. The Vex dropships descended through the thin Martian atmosphere like falling stars. There were hundreds of them, each carrying 50 Vex warriors in heavy combat armor. The first wave targeted the main colony dome, expecting to crush resistance quickly and establish a beachhead for the main invasion force. They never reached the ground. As soon as the dropships entered the lower atmosphere, the hidden human missile batteries opened fire. Hundreds of missiles streaked upward, each one targeting a specific dropship. The Vex pilots took evasive action, but the human missiles adjusted course, tracking their targets with relentless precision. 30 dropships exploded mid-air. The rest scattered, their neat formation broken. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, Admiral Thorne watched with growing disbelief. How did they acquire targeting locks through our stealth systems? He demanded. Captain Mara quickly reviewed the sensor data. They didn't, Admiral. Each missile appears to be manually guided by a human operator. Impossible. No organic being has reflexes fast enough to track our ships manually. Mara's voice was steady, but her eyes showed concern. The humans appear to have trained specifically for this scenario. They're anticipating our evasion patterns. Thorne slammed his fist down on the command console. Send in the second wave. Full combat deployment. Destroy those missile batteries. Colonel Adams watched as the second wave of Vex ships approached. This time, they came in lower and faster, hugging the Martian surface to avoid the missile batteries' firing arcs. They learned quickly, she noted. Activate the minefield. Major West pressed a sequence on his console. Across the dusty Martian plain surrounding the colony, thousands of hidden explosives detonated. The approaching Vex ships flew directly into a wall of fire and shrapnel. More ships fell, but many made it through. The first Vex troops touched down on Martian soil 2 miles from the main colony dome. Adams nodded to herself. It was time for Phase 2. All ground forces engage as planned. Remember your training. These things may be bigger and stronger, but we're fighting for our homes. The Vex ground commander, Sub-Admiral Drav, led his troops toward the human colony, with complete confidence. Initial resistance had been stronger than expected, but now they were on the ground. No species could match the Vex in direct combat. His warriors were 8 feet tall, protected by advanced armor that could withstand most energy weapons. Each carried a plasma rifle capable of vaporizing a human with a single shot. They moved in perfect formation, as they had on 100 conquered worlds. The first sign that something was wrong came when his forward scouts disappeared without warning. "Report," Drav commanded. "What happened to Scout Team 1? "Unknown, Sub-Admiral," his second-in-command replied. "They've stopped transmitting." Drav frowned. "Send Team 2 to investigate." Before his order could be carried out, the ground beneath his front line erupted. Explosives buried in the Martian soil detonated, sending Vex warriors flying through the thin atmosphere. "Ambush!" Drav shouted. "Defensive formation!" His warriors responded instantly, forming a protective circle. But the humans were nowhere to be seen. Instead, small robotic vehicles emerged from hidden bunkers, racing toward the Vex formation. Each carried a powerful explosive charge. "Destroy those machines," Drav ordered. The Vex opened fire, destroying many of the robots. But there were too many, and they moved erratically, making them difficult targets. Several reached the Vex formation and detonated, creating gaps in their lines. Only then did the humans attack. They came from underground tunnels wearing exoskeletal combat suits that enhanced their strength and speed. Their weapons were primitive by Vex standards, ballistic rifles firing metal projectiles, but they aimed for weak points in the Vex armor with remarkable precision. Drav watched in growing horror as his perfect formation disintegrated into chaos. The humans didn't engage in direct combat. They struck quickly, retreated, then attacked from another direction. They used the terrain that they had clearly prepared in advance, falling back to defensive positions when pressed, luring Vex warriors into carefully planned kill zones. "This is Sub-Admiral Drav," he transmitted to the fleet. "Request immediate air support. The humans are using guerrilla tactics. We need—" His transmission cut off as a human sniper's bullet found the gap between his helmet and chest plate. The New Mars Command Center. Colonel Adams watched the battle unfold on tactical displays. The humans were taking losses, heavy losses, but the Vex were paying for every inch of ground. "Ma'am," Major West reported, "Vex dropships are landing at Sectors 7 and 12. They're trying to flank our main defense line." Adams nodded. "Activate the tunnel collapse in those sectors." Across the battlefield, carefully weakened sections of the underground tunnel network caved in, burying dozens of Vex warriors in Martian soil. "How long until the package is ready?" Adams asked. 10 more minutes, Colonel." She checked the casualty reports. Nearly 40% of her forces were down. The Vex were learning, adapting to human tactics. Soon they would overwhelm the remaining defenders through sheer numbers and firepower, but they only needed to hold out a little longer. On the Eternal Conquest, Admiral Thorne paced the bridge, his rage building with each report from the surface. 3 hours, he snarled. 3 hours against primitives and we still haven't secured their main colony? Captain Mara stood at attention. "The humans are using the terrain to their advantage, Admiral. They've prepared for this battle extensively." "Excuses," Thorne roared. "These are humans. Soft, weak creatures who only left their homeworld a century ago." Intelligence Officer Wren studied the battle data on his console. "Admiral, I believe we need to reassess our understanding of this species. Their tactics show a level of adaptability and determination that—" "Double the landing force," Thorne interrupted. "I want that colony taken in the next hour. Use orbital bombardment to clear their defensive positions." Wren exchanged a worried glance with Captain Mara. "Admiral, may I remind you that we want to capture their resources intact? Orbital bombardment would—" "I don't care about the resources anymore," Thorne said, his voice dangerously quiet. No species defies the Vex Empire. None. They must be taught a lesson that the rest of their kind will never forget. As the orders went out for increased bombardment, none of the Vex noticed the small, stealthy human vessels that had slipped away from Mars during the chaos of battle, carrying something precious toward Earth, data on Vex weapons, tactics, and weaknesses. The Vex High Command had not met in person for 7 centuries. There had been no need. The Empire expanded steadily, adding new worlds and species to its domain without serious challenges. Local admirals handled conquests routinely, reporting their victories through regular channels. But now, the 12 highest-ranking Vex gathered in the ancient chamber aboard the Supreme Dominion, the oldest and largest vessel in the Vex fleet. This massive ship, 10 times the size of Admiral Thorne's dreadnought, had not moved from its position at the heart of Vex space in over 1,000 years. Supreme Leader Vox sat on an elevated throne, looking down at the assembled commanders. His skin was pale gray, almost white with age. Unlike other Vex, he had no battle scars. His position had kept him from direct combat for centuries, but his eyes were sharp and cold as he studied the reports from Earth. 3 weeks, he said, his voice surprisingly strong. 3 weeks, and we have not conquered a single human world completely. Explain this failure. Admiral Thorne stepped forward. As the commander of the Earth invasion fleet, the failure was his responsibility. Supreme Leader, the humans are unusual. They fight with tactics we have not encountered before. Unusual? Vox's voice dripped with contempt. They are primitives. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Their bodies are weak. They live short, meaningless lives. Yet you claim they can stand against the Empire? Thorne straightened his spine. The facts are undeniable. We have lost over 200 ships, thousands of warriors. The Mars colony still has not been fully pacified. Their Earth defense fleet has bloodied our forces repeatedly using suicide, tactics, and improvised weapons. Vox's eyes narrowed. So you admit defeat? Never, Thorne said quickly. I request additional resources. The planet cleansers. The planet cleansers? Vox leaned forward. You would destroy worlds rich in resources because you cannot defeat their primitive defenders? Intelligence Officer Wren stepped forward, breaking protocol. Supreme Leader, if I may speak? The chamber fell silent. A lower-ranking officer addressing the Supreme Leader without permission was unheard of. Vox studied the small intelligence officer for a long moment. Speak. The humans are not like other species we have conquered, Wren said. They do not follow predictable patterns. They adapt rapidly. They sacrifice willingly. Most concerning, they view defeat as temporary. Explain, Vox commanded. When we destroy their ships, they build more. When we take their territory, they retreat and plan counterattacks. Even when completely outmatched, they continue fighting. Wren activated a holographic display showing battle footage. This is from the Mars colony. The display showed human soldiers, clearly injured, continuing to fight until they could no longer move. It showed civilians turning common tools into weapons. It showed children helping to set traps for Vex warriors. They have a concept they call hope, Wren continued. It seems to grow stronger the more we push them. They believe they can win even when all logic says they cannot. Vox's face remained impassive, but his eyes showed something rare for a Vex: uncertainty. Admiral Krell, commander of the Eastern Fleet, spoke up. This is absurd. No species can stand against our full might. We should commit the entire fleet, crush their homeworld, and end this. I agree, said another admiral. Destroy their centers of population. Break their will to resist. Wren shook his head. That approach may not work with humans. Their history is filled with examples of devastating attacks that only strengthen their resolve. Enough debate, Vox declared. Admiral Thorne, you will have your reinforcements. 3 more battle fleets will join you. Admiral Krell will assume overall command. Thorne stiffened but said nothing. However, Vox continued, we will not use the planet cleansers. These humans and their worlds will join the Empire intact. Their unusual qualities may be useful once properly harnessed. As the commanders filed out of the chamber, Wren approached Thorne cautiously. "Admiral, I believe we should reconsider our approach to this war." Thorne glared at him. "Careful, intelligence officer. Your observations border on disloyalty." "Not disloyalty, Admiral. Pragmatism. I have studied thousands of human communications. They are spreading across their star system rapidly. They have 17 colonies already. They breed quickly and establish new settlements constantly. Even if we destroy their homeworld, they will continue fighting. Every species can be broken," Thorne insisted. "Perhaps," Wren said quietly. "But at what cost to the Empire?" On Earth, the War Council met daily in the underground command center beneath Geneva. What had started as 12 representatives had expanded to include military commanders, scientists, and engineers. Anyone with ideas that might help humanity survive. General Hayes pointed to the latest intelligence on the main display. "The Vex are bringing in reinforcements. 3 more fleets, at least 1,000 ships." President Chen nodded, grimly. "And our status?" "We've evacuated as many people as possible to the deep shelters. Production of new ships and weapons continues around the clock. The Mars colony is still fighting, tying down Vex forces." Hayes paused. "But I won't lie to you. The next attack will be worse than anything we've seen so far." Dr. Wilson, head of the science division, stepped forward. "We've made progress understanding their technology. The data from Mars has been invaluable." "Explain," Chen said. Wilson activated a side display showing diagrams of Vex ships and weapons. "Their technology isn't actually that far beyond ours in basic principles. They're just more refined, more efficient. But there are weaknesses we can exploit." He highlighted sections of a Vex ship. "Their shield generators operate on predictable frequencies. Their communication systems can be jammed. And most importantly, they think like conquerors, not defenders." "Meaning?" Hayes asked. "Their tactics are all focused on overwhelming force and intimidation. When those fail, they don't adapt well. They just use more force." Wilson looked around the room. "They've never had to fight a defensive war. They don't understand what it means to fight for survival." Hayes nodded slowly. "So we hit them where they don't expect it." "Exactly," Wilson said. "They expect us to defend Earth with everything we have. So instead we take the fight to them." President Chen frowned. "How?" "Their ships outgun ours 10-1. Colonel Reeves of Special Operations stood up. "We don't fight their ships directly. We infiltrate them." She brought up a new display showing small, stealthy vessels. "We've modified scout ships with captured Vex technology. They can approach the Vex fleet undetected. Small teams can board their vessels, gather intelligence, plant explosives, or even capture smaller ships." "It's a suicide mission," someone objected. "Maybe," Reeves acknowledged, "but we have no shortage of volunteers." Chen looked around the room. "Will it be enough?" No one answered immediately. Finally, Dr. Wilson spoke. "By itself? No, but it's part of the larger strategy. We don't need to win this war conventionally. We just need to make it so costly that they decide we're not worth conquering." Hayes nodded in agreement. "Exactly. Every day we hold out, we learn more about their weaknesses. We adapt our weapons and tactics. We become stronger while they grow frustrated. And if they decide to simply destroy Earth rather than conquer it," Chen asked quietly. The room fell silent again. "Then humanity continues," Hayes said firmly. "Our colonies grow stronger every day. Mars still fights. Europa, Titan, the asteroid bases. Even if Earth falls, humans will survive. And someday we'll take our home back." Chen studied the determined faces around him. 3 weeks ago, these people had been politicians, career military, scientists focused on peaceful exploration. Now they were fighting for the survival of their species. And somehow, despite everything, they still believed they could win. As the meeting concluded, he pulled General Hayes aside. "The special project. How close are we?" Hayes glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. "Project Trojan, the prototype. is ready. We'll deploy it with the infiltration teams. And if it works, Hayes allowed herself a small smile. Then the Vex will learn that humans don't just adapt to technology. We steal it and make it better. 3 years into the war, Admiral Thorne stood on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, watching the battle unfold around the gas giant humans called Jupiter. What should have been a simple operation to destroy the human mining stations on the moon, Callisto had turned into yet another frustrating engagement. The humans had hidden their defensive fleet behind the radiation belts of Jupiter, emerging only to strike at Vex ships before retreating back to safety. Their vessels were different now, faster, more maneuverable, with weapons that seemed specifically designed to target Vex shield frequencies. "Admiral," Captain Mara reported. "Battle Group 3 reports heavy damage. The humans are using some kind of new torpedo that phases through our outer shields." Thorne's face was a mask of controlled fury. 3 years of constant warfare had left its mark on him. New scars crossed his gray skin, and his once proud posture had a slight stoop of exhaustion. "Redirect Battle Group 5 to support them," he ordered, "and launch another wave of fighters." Intelligence Officer Wren approached cautiously. Unlike Thorne, he seemed energized by the long conflict, his eyes bright with the challenge of understanding the human enemy. "Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting unusual energy readings from the human flagship." "Explain," Thorne demanded. Wren studied his datapad. "The readings are similar to our own dreadnought power signatures, but that's impossible. Humans don't have that technology." Thorne's eyes narrowed. "Unless they've stolen it." He turned to his communications officer. "Alert all vessels. The human flagship is to be destroyed immediately, priority target." But the warning came too late. The human vessel Defiance, twice the size of any previous human ship, emerged from behind one of Jupiter's moons. Its hull gleamed with an odd, light-absorbing material that looked disturbingly similar to Vex technology. Instead of the usual human weapons, it fired beams of concentrated energy that cut through Vex shields, as if they weren't there. "Impossible," Thorne whispered. On his tactical display, he watched as 3 Vex cruisers were destroyed in rapid succession. The Defiance moved with impossible speed for its size, its maneuvers defying the tactical predictions of the Vex computers. "All vessels concentrate fire on that ship," Thorne ordered. The Vex fleet responded, dozens of ships turning their weapons toward the human flagship. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked across space, only to be absorbed by shields that glowed with the same blue energy as Vex protection systems. "They've adapted our technology," Wren said, his voice a mixture of horror and admiration. "They've not only stolen it, they've improved it." Before Thorne could respond, alarms blared. Across the bridge, multiple breaches reported throughout the ship. Captain Mara announced, "We're being boarded." Commander Alex of the Earth Special Forces moved swiftly through the corridors of the Vex dreadnought. 3 years of war had turned the once ordinary naval officer into something else, part soldier, part spy, part alien technology expert. The boarding team of 20 humans moved with practiced precision. Their combat suits were a mixture of human and Vex technology, providing both protection and enhanced strength. Their weapons fired energy pulses specifically calibrated to penetrate Vex armor. "Remember the objective," Alex said through the team. "Comm system. We take the bridge intact. We need Admiral Thorne alive." The team encountered heavy resistance as they approached the command deck. Vex warriors fought with the desperation of those who had never expected to defend their own ships. Alex ducked behind a corner as energy blasts scorched the wall. "Team 2, activate Plan Echo." On the other side of the command deck, the second boarding team placed a small device against the wall. The device hummed briefly, then projected an exact replica of the corridor, empty, while making the actual team invisible to Vex sensors. The Vex guards, seeing an empty corridor on their sensors, turned their attention back to Alex's team. They never noticed the invisible humans moving behind them until it was too late. With the path clear, Alex led the team to the bridge entrance. "Breach on my mark. Remember, we need the Admiral alive." Alex took a deep breath. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The door to the bridge exploded inward. Admiral Thorne had lived his entire life as a conqueror. He had never imagined he would face enemy boarders on his own bridge. Yet here he stood, surrounded by human soldiers in armor that incorporated Vex technology, their weapons trained on his command crew. A human stepped forward, removing a helmet, to reveal a face with determined eyes and a scar running from temple to jaw. "Admiral Thorne," the human said, "I'm Commander Alex of the Earth Defense Force. Your ship is now under our control." Thorne straightened to his full height, towering over the human. "Kill me and be done with it. I will not surrender." Alex smiled slightly. "If we wanted you dead, Admiral, you'd be dead already. We're here to talk." This was so unexpected that Thorne could only stare. 3 years of war, Alex continued. Millions dead on both sides. And for what? There's room enough in this galaxy for both our species. "You would speak of peace after all this?" Thorne gestured to the human soldiers, their weapons still aimed at his crew. "You board my ship, steal our technology, and then expect me to negotiate?" "We adapted your technology," Alex corrected. "Just as we've adapted to everything throughout our history. It's what humans do. We see, we learn, we improve." Intelligence Officer Wren stepped forward cautiously. "Commander, may I speak?" Alex nodded. "Admiral," Wren said, "I've studied humans extensively during this conflict. They are unlike any species we've encountered. Their strength isn't in their bodies or even their technology. It's in their minds, their ability to adapt, to find new solutions, to unite against common threats." "You sound like you admire them," Thorne accused. "I do," Wren admitted. "And so should you. Think, Admiral. In 3 years, they've gone from primitive ships to vessels that can challenge our best. They've taken our technology and improved upon it. What will they be capable of in 10 years, in 50? Thorne looked from Wren to the human commander, his mind racing. The Vex had conquered for 10,000 years because they were technologically superior to every species they encountered. But if that advantage was gone, if the humans could not only match but exceed Vex technology, "What are your terms?" he finally asked. 6 months later, Admiral Thorne stood in a park on Earth, watching human children play under the open sky. The peace talks were ongoing, complex negotiations between two species that had tried to exterminate each other for years. Commander Alex, now Ambassador Alex, approached and stood beside him. "Still trying to understand us?" Alex asked. Thorne nodded. "Your children play while diplomats decide the fate of your species. No Vex would be so relaxed." "That's the point you're missing," Alex said. "We don't fight because we're afraid. We fight because we want our children to be able to play without fear. Every human you see here knows the war could restart tomorrow, but we refuse to live as if it will." "Hope," Thorne said, remembering Wren's reports. "Your irrational belief that things will improve despite evidence to the contrary." Alex smiled. "It served us well so far." A small human child approached, looking up at Thorne with curious eyes. The Admiral tensed, still uncomfortable with civilian interactions. The child held up a drawing, a crude representation of a Vex ship and a human ship side by side rather than firing at each other. "For you," the child said simply, before running back to join the others. Thorne looked at the drawing, then at the playing children, then at the blue sky above. For the first time in his long life, he considered a universe where strength came not from conquering, but from creating, where different species might actually benefit from each other's differences rather than fighting to prove superiority. "Your Vex Empire has stood for 10,000 years, Alex said quietly. "Imagine what we might build together that could last even longer." Thorne carefully folded the child's drawing and placed it inside his uniform. "Together," he repeated, testing the word. It felt strange, but not entirely unpleasant. As they walked through the park, Thorne realized that the Vex had feared nothing in the universe until they met humans. The war that followed had nearly destroyed both species, but perhaps what came after, this uncertain, difficult peace, would be the greatest conquest of all. the conquest of fear itself. For the first time since the war began, Admiral Thorne felt something unusual stirring within him. It took a moment to recognize it, this alien sensation. It was hope. The message came through at 0300 ship time, breaking the quiet hum of the night shift on Helios 9. Captain Ellis Reed was not asleep when they called him to the command center. Sleep came rarely these days. "Sir, we're picking up a distress signal," said Officer Davis, her eyes fixed on the glowing screen. "It's from the Mura." Reed straightened his back. The Mura were not a species that called for help lightly. Small, with pale blue skin and 4 delicate arms, they were known across the galaxy for their peaceful ways and brilliant minds. They were also known for their fragility. Their homeworld had half of Earth's gravity and no predators larger than a house cat. "Play it," Reed ordered, moving closer to the main screen. The message flickered to life. A Mura, its large eyes filled with fear, spoke quickly. Behind it, other Mura rushed back and forth. Something exploded, making the picture shake. "This is Research Station Lumina in the Cygnus system. We are under attack by Vorex ships, 3 warships. They have damaged our shields. We cannot hold much longer. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. Our people will die." The screen went black. "When did this come in?" Reed asked. 10 minutes ago, sir," Davis answered. "It was sent on all channels." Reed nodded slowly. He knew what this meant. The Mura were sending out a wide call, hoping someone, anyone, would answer. But most ships in this part of space would turn away from Vorex pirates. The Vorex were brutal fighters who took what they wanted and killed anyone who stood in their way. But the Mura had one unlikely ally: humans. "Contact Admiral Taylor," Reed said. "Tell him we received a distress call from a council species, and prep the Thunderhead for immediate launch." Davis looked up, surprised. "The warship, sir? Not a rescue vessel?" Reed's face hardened. "The Mura didn't call for medics, officer. They called for help against Vorex pirates. We're sending the right tool for the job." 2 hours later, Reed stood in the Admiral's office on Helios 9, a mining outpost that had grown into humanity's furthest military base. Admiral Taylor, a man whose gray hair and lined face showed his 50 years of service, studied the star map between them. The glowing dot that marked the Mura research station blinked red. "You understand the delicate position we're in, Captain," Taylor said, not looking up. "The Galactic Council tolerates our presence, nothing more. One wrong move and they'll use it as an excuse to push us back to our solar system." "I understand, sir," Reed replied. "But the Mura sent out a distress call. Under council law, we have the right to respond." Taylor finally looked up, his eyes sharp. "Yes, respond. Not start a war. The Vorex started this, not us. And that's the only reason I'm authorizing this mission." Taylor switched off the star map. "The UEF's Thunderhead is yours, Captain. It's logged as a humanitarian vessel in council records. That should give you some cover." Reed nodded. The Thunderhead was one of Earth's newest ships, officially classified as a medical transport but secretly armed with the best weapons humans had developed. "Your orders are simple," Taylor continued. "Save the Mura, gather intelligence on why the Vorex are attacking a research station, and make it clear that crossing humans is a bad idea. But remember, the Council is always watching us, looking for any excuse to label us as the dangerous savages they already think we are." "We're only dangerous when threatened, sir," Reed said. Taylor almost smiled. "That's what scares them, Captain. 60 years ago they discovered our death world and expected primitive savages. Instead, they found a species that had survived on a planet that should have killed them, who had turned their harsh world into an advantage. They should have welcomed us. Fear makes for poor diplomacy. Instead, they restricted our ships, limited our colonies, and watched us like we were a disease they couldn't cure." Taylor handed Reed a data pad. "This mission is more than a rescue, Captain. It's a chance to show the Council what humans really are." "And what's that, sir?" "This time," Taylor did smile. "The ones who come when you call for help. The crew of the Thunderhead assembled in the ship's main hall. Reed looked them over. 40 men and women chosen for this mission. Many were veterans of Earth's unification wars. All knew what it meant to fight against bad odds. The situation is simple, Reed said, his voice carrying to all corners of the room. The Mura research station in the Cygnus system is under attack by Vorex pirates. We're going to stop the attack and save the Mura scientists. We jump in 1 hour. Lieutenant Morgan Cole raised her hand. Cole was Reed's tactical officer, a woman whose calm face hid the enhanced reflexes that let her move faster than any normal human. Sir, do we know why the Vorex are hitting a research station? They usually go after cargo ships or mining operations, things with obvious value. Good question, Lieutenant. That's part of what we need to find out. Reed nodded to a tall, thin man at the back of the room. Dr. Parker will brief you on the Mura. Dr. Alex Parker stepped forward. The xenobiologist moved with the careful steps of someone used to Earth's gravity, now adjusting to the lighter pull of the ship. The Mura are primarily researchers, Parker explained. Their station in the Cygnus system is studying the gas, giant Cygnus 4. They're known for biotechnology advancements, particularly in propulsion systems. Their bodies evolved in a gentle environment. Low gravity, stable climate, few natural threats. What might be a minor injury to us could be deadly to them. In other words, Reed added, they can't fight the Vorex themselves, not and survive. What are our combat options, sir? This came from Security Chief Jordan Hayes, a broad-shouldered woman whose quiet voice contrasted with her powerful build. Limited by council rules, Reed admitted. We're authorized to use non-lethal force first, but if the Vorex fire on us directly, his eyes hardened. We're cleared to respond in kind. Hayes nodded, satisfied. Everyone in the room knew what that meant. Humans didn't start fights, but they definitely finished them. One more thing, Reed said. Engineer Cooper? Finn Cooper, a man whose grease-stained uniform showed he'd come directly from the engine room, looked up. The Thunderhead is officially a humanitarian vessel. We need to maintain that cover until the Vorex force our hand. Can you make sure our weapons stay hidden until we need them? Cooper grinned. Already done, Captain. On sensors, we'll look harmless right up until we blow them out of the sky. A small laugh went through the room, breaking the tension. Remember, Reed said as he prepared to dismiss them, the Council sees us as dangerous Deathworlders. Savages, who evolved on a planet that should have killed us. They're watching this mission looking for any excuse to restrict us further. He paused, looking each crew member in the eye. Let's show them what Deathworlders really do when someone cries for help. We don't send diplomats with empty words, we send ships, we send ourselves. The crew straightened, pride visible on every face. To your stations, Reed ordered. We jump in 45 minutes. As the crew dispersed, Reed stayed behind, studying the star map and the small blinking light that represented the Mura station. What he didn't share with the crew was one final piece of intel from Admiral Taylor. This wasn't the first research station hit in recent months. Something was happening in Council space, something that powerful people wanted to keep secret. And now humans were walking right into the middle of it. The Thunderhead's engines hummed to life, building power for the jump that would take them to the Cygnus system, to the Mura, to whatever waited for them there. Reed took a deep breath. They were ready. The ship jumped. The jump to the Cygnus system was hard. Faster than light travel always took a toll on living beings. Most species needed days to recover. Humans, who had evolved on a world that constantly tried to kill them, needed hours. Captain Reed was on, his feet immediately after the Thunderhead completed its jump. His body hurt, but he ignored it. Pain was just information, as the old Earth saying went. Report, he ordered, stepping onto the bridge. His eyes were already adjusting to the dim battle lights. Lieutenant Cole glanced up from her tactical screen. 3 Vorex vessels surrounding the research station, sir. Station shields at 30% and falling. Life signs still present inside. Reed studied the main view screen. The Mura research station hung like a bright star against the massive gas giant. Cygnus 4. It had the elegant curves typical of Mura construction, biometal grown rather than built. 3 dark angular ships, the Vorex vessels, circled it like predators. "Any damage to the Vorex ships?" Reed asked. "Minimal, sir," Cole replied. "The Mura have defensive weapons, but they're designed to push attackers away, not destroy them." "Typical," muttered Hayes from her security station. "The council species think every problem can be solved without real fighting." Reed held up a hand. "Let's not judge them for being who they are. Dr. Parker, what's the status of the Mura inside?" Dr. Parker was bent over a scanner. "Life signs are stable but stressed. I'm detecting approximately 50 Mura in the central hub of the station. They've sealed themselves in, which is buying them time." Reed nodded. "Cooper, status of our weapon systems?" "Ready but hidden, Captain," the engineer replied from the engine deck. "Our energy signature shows as a medical vessel, but I can have weapons online in 20 seconds. "Good." Reed straightened his uniform. "Open a channel to the Vorex vessels. Council protocol requires we attempt communication before taking action." Officer Davis worked her console. "Channel open, sir." Reed looked directly at the camera. "This is Captain Ellis Reed of the United Earth Defense Force vessel Thunderhead. We are responding to a distress call from the Mura research station. Cease your attack immediately and withdraw from this system." The screen remained black for several seconds. Then it flickered, showing a Vorex commander. The alien had rough gray skin and a heavy brow ridge over yellow eyes. A series of ridged horns ran from the top of his head down his back. He wore ornate armor that gleamed even in the dim light of his ship. "A human vessel," the Vorex said, his voice a low rumble. "I am Commander Krall of the Free Vorex Fleet. This matter does not concern you, Earth creature. This is business between the Vorex and the Mura." Reed kept his face neutral. When a council species sends a distress call, it concerns all peaceful members of galactic society. I ask again, withdraw your vessels. Krall made a sound that might have been laughter. "I have heard of humans. Soft-skinned diplomats the council keeps on a short leash. You have 1 medical vessel. I have 3 warships. Your position is unrealistic." "Perhaps," Reed said, "but I'm required to give you this chance. Withdraw now, or we will remove you." Now Krall definitely laughed. "Remove us? With what? Your empty threats?" His yellow eyes narrowed. "Leave now, human, or we'll send your atoms back to your pathetic death world as a warning to others." Reed smiled slightly. "Lieutenant Cole, target the nearest Vorex vessel's engine section. Low yield, precision strike." "Target locked, sir," Cole replied, her fingers moving quickly over her tactical screen. "Fire." The Thunderhead shuddered, slightly as a beam of concentrated energy lanced out. It struck the nearest Vorex ship precisely where its engines connected to the main hull. The effect was immediate. The Vorex ship's lights flickered and it began drifting. Krall's face showed shock. "That's impossible. You're registered as a medical vessel." "A common mistake," Reed said calmly. "Now, about that withdrawal we discussed." Krall snarled something in his native language. The screen went black. "They're powering weapons, sir," Cole called out. "Shields up, battle stations," Reed ordered. "Let's show them what a ship from a death world can do." Inside the Mura research station, Administrator Lumi pressed her 4 slender hands against the sealed door of the central hub. Beyond it, she could hear the Vorex boarding parties trying to break through. They had been at it for hours. "How much longer can the door hold?" asked one of her fellow researchers, his voice shaking. "Not long enough," Lumi admitted. Their security systems weren't designed for this kind of attack. The Mura had never needed them before. Suddenly, a different sound came from their communication panel. Not the harsh demands of the Vorex, but a calm human voice. "Mura Research Station. This is Dr. Alex Parker of the Earth vessel Thunderhead. We've engaged the Vorex ships and need to coordinate with you. Are you receiving?" Lumi rushed to the panel. "Yes, this is Administrator Lumi. You came." We didn't think anyone would come. We respond to all distress calls, Dr. Parker replied. What is your situation? We're sealed in the central hub. 52 researchers. The Vorex have boarding parties inside the outer rings of the station. They're trying to break through our last door. Understood. We'll send a team to secure your position. In the meantime, I need to know, why are the Vorex attacking a research station? What are they after? Lumi hesitated, looking at her fellow researchers. This question touched on their most secret work. We've been developing a new propulsion system, she finally said. One that doesn't rely on the established hyperspace gates. It would allow smaller ships to make jumps without massive energy requirements. There was a pause from the human end. That would change interstellar travel completely, Dr. Parker said. The major powers controlling the gates would lose their monopoly. Yes, Lumi admitted. That's why our work was classified. But someone leaked information. The Vorex demanded we hand over all research. When we refused, they attacked. Dr. Parker finished. We understand. Help is coming, Administrator. Just hold on a little longer. Back on the Thunderhead, the battle was intensifying. The Vorex ships had recovered from their initial surprise and were now coordinating their attacks. They're better armed than typical pirates, Cole observed as another blast rocked the ship. And better trained, Hayes added. Sir, I recommend we board the damaged vessel. We might find answers about who's really behind this attack. Reed considered this. Agreed. Prepare a boarding team. Hayes, you'll lead. Take Cole with you. Hayes nodded sharply. Yes, sir. As they prepared to leave, Reed added, Remember, we need to show restraint where possible. The Council will review everything we do here. Hayes and Cole exchanged a glance. Understood, sir, Hayes said. Minimum necessary force. 10 minutes later, Hayes and Cole led a team of 6 security personnel toward the damaged Vorex ship. They wore light armor, not the heavy battlesuit some Council species used, but flexible protection that still allowed full human mobility. Rules of engagement? Asked one of the security team. We're looking for information, Hayes replied. Non-lethal takedowns where possible, but if they fire on us, she checked her weapon. Defend yourselves. They reached the Vorex ship's outer hull. The alien metal felt strange under their boots as they magnetized to its surface. Cole placed a breaching charge on what sensors identified as an access hatch. Ready? Hayes asked. Cole nodded. Time to show them why Deathworlders have a reputation. The charge blew, creating a perfect circular opening. Almost immediately, warning klaxons blared inside the Vorex ship. Hayes went in first, dropping into the alien corridor. The gravity was lighter than Earth standard, a disadvantage for the Vorex, an advantage for the humans. They encountered the first Vorex guards at a junction. The aliens opened fire immediately. Cole moved with enhanced speed, diving and rolling while returning fire with precise shots that disabled rather than killed. Hayes moved differently. Direct, powerful, using the lighter gravity to leap distances that would be impossible on Earth. She closed with the first Vorex guard, who looked shocked at her approach. His species relied on ranged weapons, not close combat. The guard learned too late why that was a mistake against humans. As they secured the junction, Cole noticed something on a fallen Vorex's uniform, a small insignia she didn't recognize. Hayes, she called. Look at this. Hayes examined the marking. That's not a pirate symbol, that's a military designation. Cole nodded grimly. These aren't just pirates. Someone sent them specifically for the Mura research. The question is, Hayes said as they prepared to move deeper into the ship. Who? The answer, they suspected, would change their mission completely. Captain, we have a problem. Reed looked up from the tactical display as Engineer Cooper's voice came through the comm. It had been 2 days since they arrived at the Mura research station. 2 days of holding the Vorex ships at bay while evacuating. The most vulnerable Mura to the Thunderhead. What kind of problem? Reed asked. The kind that comes with reinforcements, Cooper replied grimly. Long-range sensors just picked up 5 more ships jumping into the system. And sir, these aren't pirate vessels, these are military grade. Reed's face hardened. He turned to Officer Davis. Get me Hayes and Cole. Now. Minutes later, Lieutenant Cole's face appeared on the screen. She and Hayes were still on the Mura station working with the researchers. "We've got company," Reed told her. "5 more ships, military grade. ETA 20 minutes. What did you find over there?" Cole glanced at something off-screen. "Sir, the Mura showed us their research. It's bigger than we thought. Their propulsion breakthrough would allow small ships to jump without using the established hyperspace gates." Reed immediately understood the implications. The major powers in the Galactic Council controlled those gates. They decided who could travel where and how much it would cost. A way around that system would change everything. "That explains the attack," Reed said, "but not who's really behind it." Hayes moved into view beside Cole. "We found something else, sir. The Mura have evidence that the Trescan hegemony has been violating Council treaties. They've been weaponizing forbidden technology. The Trescan hegemony was one of the oldest and most powerful members of the Galactic Council. They had been among the loudest voices calling for restrictions on human expansion. So the Trescan sent disguised forces to steal the propulsion research and eliminate witnesses," Reed concluded. "And now they're sending more ships to finish the job." "What are your orders, sir?" Cole asked. Reed studied the tactical display again. "We're outgunned, but we're not outthinking them. Start evacuation procedures for all Mura personnel. We're going to establish a defensive perimeter and buy time." He looked directly at the screen. "And Cole, tell the Mura we need everything. They have on the Trescan violations. It might be our only bargaining chip." In the research station's main laboratory, Cole relayed Reed's message to Administrator Lumi. The Mura leader's large eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of distress in her species. "There are more ships coming?" Lumi asked, her voice trembling. "Yes," Cole replied gently. "And we believe they're Trescan military, not just pirates. We need to evacuate your people to our ship." Lumi's 4 hands moved in a complex pattern that Cole had learned was a Mura gesture of worry. "What about our research? Our evidence against the Trescans?" "Pack everything essential," Cole said. "Dr. Parker will help you with that." Dr. Parker, who had been working with the Mura scientists, nodded. "We'll use the portable data cores. They can hold all your research and evidence." As they worked, Hayes organized the security teams. The human soldiers moved with purpose, setting up defensive positions at key junctions of the station. Hayes noticed a young Mura researcher watching them with wide eyes. "Is something wrong?" Hayes asked. The young Mura, who had introduced herself as Tella, seemed startled by the direct question. "No, I've just never seen combat preparations before." Hayes softened her tone. "Your people don't have much need for this kind of thing, do you?" "No," Tella admitted. "Our history has very little conflict. Our bodies aren't made for fighting." Hayes showed Tella how to hold a simple barrier shield. "Sometimes fighting isn't about being the strongest, it's about being smart and working together." Tella looked at Hayes curiously. "Why are you humans willing to fight for us? The Galactic Council treats your world with such suspicion." Hayes was quiet for a moment before answering. "We remember what it was like before we united. Being vulnerable. Being prey. No one should live that way if they don't have to." Tella's expression changed to something Hayes couldn't read in the alien face. "The Council calls humans dangerous deathworlders, but perhaps they misunderstand what that means." On the bridge of the Thunderhead, Reed watched as the new ships appeared on the tactical display. They moved with precision, cutting off possible escape routes. "They're hurting us," Reed observed. "Captain, we're being hailed," Officer Davis reported. "It's the lead vessel." "On screen," Reed ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing a Trescan commander. Unlike the Vorax, the Trescans were tall and slender with metallic-looking skin and eyes that seemed to be made of crystal. This one wore an elaborate uniform with many insignia of rank. "I am Commander Vex of the Trescan Defense Force," the alien said. His voice had the strange musical quality typical of his species. "I am here to assist with pirate activity in this system." Reed kept his expression neutral. "That's interesting, Commander. We weren't aware the Trescan Defense Force operated this far from your territory." Pirates are everyone's concern, Vex replied smoothly. I see you have already engaged the hostiles. Your assistance is noted, but we will take control of the situation now. I'm afraid I can't allow that, Reed said. We're currently evacuating Mura researchers who specifically called for our help. Vex's crystal eyes glinted. The Mura and their research fall under Trescan protection by Council Treaty. Surrender them to us and you may leave unharmed. Reed smiled thinly. No. Vex's expression didn't change, but his tone cooled. You are one vessel. We are 6. The logical choice is clear. Logic isn't everything, Commander. Cooper. Yes, sir. The engineer's voice came over the comm. Initiate Protocol Thunderstorm. With pleasure, sir. Vex looked confused for a moment. What is this protocol? Something only a crew from a death world would attempt, Reed replied, and cut the communication. Protocol Thunderstorm was a high-risk battle plan that Reed had developed specifically for situations where the Thunderhead was outnumbered. It relied on the unique human combination of careful planning and seemingly reckless action. The first stage appeared suicidal. The Thunderhead accelerated directly toward the Trescan command ship, weapons firing. Every Trescan vessel focused on this apparent kamikaze run. What they didn't notice was a small shuttle leaving the Thunderhead's bay, using the battle as cover. On board were Hayes, Cole, and a team of their best people, along with Dr. Parker and the most critical Mura researchers and their data. As the Thunderhead drew fire, the shuttle slipped through a blind spot in the Trescan formation. Their destination? The far side of the gas giant, where they could use its radiation belt to mask their presence while implementing the second phase of the plan. Meanwhile, Cooper had modified the Mura station's atmospheric scrubbers to create a plasma dispersal cloud. When activated, it created a massive energy field that disrupted sensors and communications. In the confusion, several more shuttles escaped from the station, each headed in different directions. Reed felt the Thunderhead shudder as it took heavy fire. The ship was tough, built by people who understood survival against bad odds, but it couldn't take this punishment forever. Sir, Davis called out, her voice tense. Engine 3 is failing. Hull breach on decks 4 through 6. Reed gripped his command chair as another blast rocked the ship. Stay the course, officer. The plan is working. On the screen, he could see the confusion spreading through the Trescan formation as their sensors failed to penetrate the plasma cloud. Several ships were breaking formation to chase ghost targets. Then, disaster struck. A direct hit on the Thunderhead's main power coupling caused a cascade failure. The lights on the bridge flickered and died, replaced by the dim red glow of emergency power. Status, Reed called out. Main power down, Davis reported. Weapons offline, shields at 10%. Another hit sent Reed flying from his chair. He felt something crack in his chest as he slammed into a bulkhead. Pain exploded through his body, but he forced himself back to his feet. Cooper, he gasped into his comm. Status of the evacuation shuttles? Hayes and Cole's shuttle is clear, sir, Cooper replied, his voice barely audible through the static. They've reached the radiation belt, but I'm cut off with a group of Mura civilians in Section D. We can't reach the last shuttle. Reed tried to think through the pain. The plan was falling apart, and to make matters worse, the tactical display showed a new group of ships entering the system. Sir, Davis said, her face pale in the emergency lighting. Those new signals, they're Council peacekeepers. Reed felt his consciousness fading as the pain in his chest intensified. The last thing he saw before blackness took him was the symbol of the Galactic Council peacekeeping force appearing on the damaged view screen. Their mission had just become even more complicated. Lieutenant Cole stared at the tactical display in the shuttle's small command center. The situation looked hopeless. The Thunderhead was badly damaged, Captain Reed was injured, and Council peacekeepers had arrived, likely to side with the Trescans, who had powerful voices in the Galactic Council. We need to implement scatter protocol, Cole said firmly. Hayes looked up from checking her weapons. With the captain down, that makes you acting commander. Your call. Cole nodded. 6 months ago, she might have hesitated. But humans from Earth learned quickly or they didn't survive. Scatter protocol it is. Break our forces into smaller units. They can't catch what they can't track. Dr. Parker, who was helping the Mura scientists organize their data, joined them. The Mura have something that might help us. Their biology allows them to see energy patterns that are invisible to most species. How does that help? Hayes asked. They've been studying Trescan ships, Parker explained. They found a weakness in their shield technology, a fluctuation, point that appears every 87 seconds. Cole's eyes widened. That could change everything. If we time our attacks to that fluctuation, we might have a chance, Hayes finished. She looked at the huddle of frightened Mura researchers. But we need to get these civilians to safety first. Cole made a quick decision. Hayes, take your best team and use the environmental suits to cross open space. Board the Trescan command ship and disable their communications. We need to stop them from coordinating. Hayes gave a sharp nod. A stealth mission. Risky, but we've done worse. Meanwhile, Cole continued, I'll contact Engineer Cooper. If he's trapped in Section D of the station with Mura civilians, we might be able to use that to our advantage. In the damaged Section D of the Mura station, Engineer Cooper was using everything he'd learned on Earth to keep himself and 12 Mura civilians alive. The section was running on emergency power, atmosphere was leaking, and Trescan boarding parties were trying to cut through the sealed doors. His comm crackled to life. Cooper, do you read me? This is Cole. Reading you, Lieutenant. Cooper replied, relief evident in his voice. We're in a tight spot here. I have an idea, Cole said. How structurally sound is your section? Cooper looked around at the damaged walls and exposed wiring. Not very. Why? Could you turn it into a bomb? Cooper smiled slowly. Few species in the galaxy would even think of such a plan, but humans from Earth were used to turning disasters into advantages. Give me 30 minutes, Cooper said. On the Trescan command ship, a small breach appeared in an unused maintenance hatch. If anyone had been watching, they might have seen the metal glow red for a brief moment before a perfect circle melted away. No alarm sounded. The Trescans, confident in their superior technology, had focused their security sensors outward, not inward. Hayes and her team, wearing environmental suits that let them cross open space between ships, slipped inside. For most species, such a maneuver would be suicidal. The radiation, the cold, the vacuum, any one of these would kill a being not evolved on a death world. But humans had always been good at surviving what should kill them. Maintenance shaft, secure, Hayes whispered into her suit comm. Moving to central communications. Her team moved like shadows through the alien vessel. When they encountered Trescan crew members, they used quick, non-lethal takedowns. The Council would review everything later. Better to avoid unnecessary deaths. As they approached the central communications hub, Hayes consulted the ship schematic that the Mura had provided. 2 guards at the entrance, standard procedure, she signaled to her team. In perfect synchronization, they moved around the corner. Before the Trescan guards could even raise their weapons, Hayes and her team had them secured and unconscious. We have 8 minutes before they detect the communication hub is offline, Hayes said. Let's make them count. Back on the Thunderhead, Captain Reed awoke to pain and the sound of alarms. Dr. Lee, the ship's medical officer, was bending over him. Easy, Captain, Dr. Lee said. You have 3 broken ribs and a punctured lung. The autosurgeon repaired the worst damage, but you need to stay still. Reed pushed himself up anyway, gritting his teeth against the pain. Status report. Officer Davis, who had been standing nearby, stepped forward. The Thunderhead is operating on emergency power. Weapons and main engines are offline. But, sir, Lieutenant Cole has implemented scatter protocol. Good, Reed managed to say. And the Council peacekeepers? Their commander, Arbiter Giral, has been trying to contact us. He's demanding all parties stand down. Reed smiled grimly. Arbiter Giral was known throughout the galaxy as incorruptible. He followed Council law to the letter. That could work. In their favor if they had evidence. Open a channel to Arbiter Giral, Reed ordered, and get me Cole. Arbiter Joral, Reed said, his voice stronger than he felt. This is Captain Ellis Reed of the Thunderhead. We are responding to a distress call from the Mura research station. The Arbiter's face filled the small emergency screen. He was a Vanthi, one of the oldest species in the Council, tall and thin with skin like polished wood and eyes that had seen centuries pass. Captain Reed, Joral said, his voice precise and formal. I have reports of unauthorized combat in a protected system. The Trescan commander informs me that you have interfered with a legitimate security operation. The Trescans are lying, Reed said bluntly. They attacked the Mura station to steal research and eliminate witnesses to their treaty violations. Joral's expression didn't change. Those are serious accusations, Captain. The Trescan hegemony is a respected member of the Council. We have evidence, Reed replied. The Mura documented Trescan violations of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They're developing forbidden weapons technology. At that moment, Lieutenant Cole's face appeared on a split screen. Captain, we're executing the counterattack now. Hayes has disabled the Trescan command ship's communications. Cooper is converting Section D of the station into an explosive device. Joral looked alarmed. An explosive device? Captain, this goes against all Council protocols for no civilians in danger, Arbiter, Reed cut in. Cooper evacuated all Mura from that section, and we're only targeting Trescan military vessels that attacked a peaceful research station. He looked directly at Joral. While you decide who's following Council protocols, we're saving lives. Reed nodded to Cole. Execute the plan. The next 10 minutes saw a coordinated attack that would have impressed even the most seasoned military commanders. First, Hayes' team overrode the Trescan command ship's communication array, sending false orders to the other vessels. 2 Trescan ships moved out of formation, leaving gaps in their defense. Then Cooper detonated his improvised explosive, the entire Section D of the Mura station. The blast created a massive debris field that disabled 2 more Trescan vessels, their hulls punctured by high-speed fragments. Meanwhile, Cole's shuttle, guided by the Mura scientists' knowledge of Trescan shield fluctuations, fired precisely timed shots at the Trescan flagship's propulsion system. The shots slipped through the momentary gaps in the shields, disabling the main engines. On his peacekeeping vessel, Arbiter Joral watched in astonishment. Humans were supposed to be dangerous, yes, but this level of coordination against superior forces was unprecedented. Even more surprising, they were being careful to minimize casualties. The attacks targeted systems, not crew quarters. The debris field had been directed away from the station's inhabited sections. As Joral was considering this, his communication officer turned to him. Arbiter, we're receiving data packets on an obscure frequency. They appear to be from the Mura research station. Display them, Joral ordered. The screen filled with technical data, research notes, and surveillance recordings, all documenting Trescan violations of Council treaties. The evidence was clear and damning. Joral's wooden face hardened. Contact the Trescan commander. Inform him that his vessels are now under Council jurisdiction, pending an investigation. Reed watched the tactical display as the peacekeeping vessels moved to surround the remaining Trescan ships. Despite the pain in his chest, he smiled. Against all odds, they had created an opportunity. The Mura were safe. The Trescans were exposed. The Council would have to acknowledge that humans, for all their dangerous reputation, had acted honorably. But as Reed was about to contact Cole to congratulate her, alarms blared again. Something was happening on the Trescan command ship, an energy surge unlike anything their sensors had seen before. What is that? Reed demanded. Officer Davis looked up, her face pale. Sir, the Trescans have activated some kind of quantum device. It's creating a space-time distortion that's expanding rapidly. Get me Cole and Hayes, Reed ordered. Now. The Trescan commander had one final devastating card to play. If he couldn't have the Mura research, no one would. The quantum device on the Trescan command ship pulsed with unnatural light. Every sensor on the Thunderhead screamed warnings as reality itself seemed to warp around the device. What are we dealing with? Reed demanded, fighting through the pain of his injuries to stand at the command console. Officer Davis studied the readings with growing horror. It's some kind of space-time collapse device, sir. The Treskans have activated forbidden technology. It's creating a distortion that will expand and destroy everything in this system within hours. Reed's face hardened. Can we shut it down remotely? Negative, sir. The quantum field is already disrupting our systems. We'd need to physically remove the device from normal space. Reed opened a direct channel to all human personnel. This is Captain Reed. The Treskans have activated a doomsday device. We have hours before it destroys this entire system. I need options, people. This is what we train for. Throughout the scattered human forces, the message was received with the grim determination unique to those born on a death world. Humans didn't panic in the face of extinction. They planned. On her shuttle, Lieutenant Cole immediately contacted Hayes, who was still aboard the Trescan command ship. Hayes, can you locate the quantum device? Already on it, Hayes replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. It's in the central engineering section. Security is heavy and the quantum field is growing. Normal barriers won't contain it for long. Cole glanced at Dr. Parker, who was working frantically with the Mura scientists. Can the Mura help us understand this technology? Administrator Lumi stepped forward, her large eyes reflecting the emergency lights. This is Trescan forbidden technology. The same violations we documented. It creates a quantum singularity that will collapse this region of space. It cannot be deactivated once started. Then we need to remove it from normal space entirely, Cole concluded. That would require a one-way trip, Dr. Parker said quietly. Someone would have to pilot a vessel carrying the device beyond the system boundary where the collapse would be contained. A heavy silence fell over the shuttle. In Section C of the damaged research station, Engineer Cooper received the captain's message while working to repair a shuttle for the remaining Mura civilians. A quantum collapse device, he muttered. That's just cheating. But his mind was already racing. The Mura's experimental propulsion research might offer a solution. If they could modify a shuttle to contain the quantum effect temporarily. Cooper opened his comm channel. Captain, I think I have an idea, but I'm going to need help from our Mura friends. On the Thunderhead, Reed coordinated the desperate plan while Arbiter Jiral's peacekeepers evacuated the remaining civilians from the research station. This is against all council protocols, Jiral protested when Reed explained their intention. To send a modified shuttle carrying the quantum device beyond the system boundary. We should evacuate immediately. That's the difference between us, Reed replied, his voice hard. When people cry for help, you send regulations. Deathworlders send ships. Jiral's ancient eyes studied Reed for a long moment. You would sacrifice one of your own to save this system? To save the Mura? To stop the Treskans from getting away with mass murder? Yes. Reed turned away from the Arbiter. It's what humans do. The plan came together with desperate speed. Cooper modified a shuttle with parts from the Mura's experimental propulsion system, creating a vessel that could temporarily contain the quantum effect. Hayes and her team would secure the device, and Cole would coordinate the transfer. There was one final question. Who would pilot the shuttle on its one-way journey? Reed ended the debate before it began. I'll do it. Sir, you're injured, Cole protested. I should... That's an order, Lieutenant. Reed cut her off. You're needed to get our people home. No one argued further. On a death world like Earth, leadership meant being willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. The operation to secure the quantum device was more dangerous than any mission Hayes had ever led. The Trescan crew fought desperately, and the expanding quantum field caused equipment failures and unpredictable gravity shifts. Yet the humans pushed forward. Their bodies, evolved to survive Earth's punishing conditions, adapted to the changing gravity. Their minds, trained to find solutions in deadly situations, anticipated each new challenge. When they finally reached the central engineering section, Hayes saw the device. It pulsed with sickly light, distorting the air around it. Containment. Team, move in, she ordered. Remember your training. Don't look directly at the quantum field. Their specially designed container, built with Cooper's modifications, barely held the device. but it was enough to transport it to the waiting shuttle. Reed sat in the pilot's seat of the modified shuttle, reviewing the simple flight plan. Take the quantum device beyond the system boundary. Activate the final containment sequence. Accept the inevitable. Captain. Reed looked up to see Administrator Loomy standing in the shuttle doorway, several Mura scientists behind her. You should be evacuating with the others, Reed said. We have modified your plan, Loomy replied. She held up a data crystal, our complete research. We want you to have it. Reed looked at the crystal in confusion. I don't understand. Your engineer Cooper and our scientists worked on something else while preparing this shuttle, Loomy explained. A modified version of our propulsion system. It might create an escape window, a very small chance, but a chance. Behind her, a Mura transport appeared on the view screen, approaching the shuttle bay. We have adapted our biotechnology to withstand the quantum effects temporarily, Loomy continued. When the containment field begins to fail, our transport will attempt to retrieve you. Reed stared at the Mura in disbelief. You would risk your lives for this? After everything that's happened? Loomy's 4 hands formed a gesture that Reed had never seen before. The Council calls humans dangerous deathworlders. We now understand what that truly means. Not that you value life less, but that you value freedom more. The final moments came too quickly. The shuttle launched with Reed, piloting and the quantum device secured in its modified containment field. Hayes and Cole led the remaining human forces to the evacuation vessels, while Cooper finished repairs on the Thunderhead's essential systems. Arbiter Joral, having seen the evidence against the Treskins and witnessed the humans' selfless actions, ordered his peacekeepers to assist with the evacuation instead of impeding it. Reed guided the shuttle toward the system boundary, watching the countdown on the containment field. It was failing faster than expected. The quantum effect was growing, stronger. As the field strength dropped to critical levels, Reed prepared for the end. He had done his duty. The Mura would survive. The truth about the Treskins would reach the Council. Then a strange ship appeared on his sensors, the modified Mura transport. It matched his course, extending a biomechanical docking tube that seemed to push back against the quantum distortion. Captain Reed, Loomy's voice came through the crackling comm. Prepare for emergency transfer. What followed was a desperate race against physics itself. As the containment field collapsed, the Mura transport's biotechnology created a temporary, safe corridor. Reed abandoned the shuttle seconds before the quantum effect engulfed it completely. The transport accelerated away, its engines straining against the growing distortion. They barely escaped the event horizon, as the shuttle and the quantum device disappeared into a collapsing pocket of space-time. 1 month later, the repaired Thunderhead prepared to depart from the new Mura research facility, established in a neighboring system. On the observation deck, Reed stood with Administrator Loomy, watching as Mura ships and human vessels prepared for a joint expedition. The Council has acknowledged the Treskin violations, Loomy said. Some restrictions on human activities have been eased. And your propulsion research? Reed asked. Being shared with all species, Loomy replied. No more monopolies on interstellar travel. Reed nodded with satisfaction. The mission had accomplished more than they had hoped. And something else had changed too. The way the Mura looked at humans. Other species still fear humans, Loomy observed. But now they understand something important about dangerous deathworlders. What's that? Reed asked. That they are dangerous not because they value life less, but because they value freedom more. Reed watched as the joint fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. They call Earth a death world, he said quietly. But it taught us something important about life. What's that? Loomy asked. That it's worth fighting for, especially when it's not your own. As the ships jumped away, news of what had happened in the Cygnus system spread throughout the galaxy. The story grew with each telling, becoming almost mythical. How humans, the dangerous deathworlders from Earth, had risked everything to save a peaceful species they barely knew, and a new wisdom began to take hold among the stars. When facing crisis, pray the response comes from the dangerous deathworlders of Earth, because they don't just send help. They send ships,